The Man Who Lived Alone in New York. At 4:45 in the morning, New York was still half asleep. The streets were dark, wet from last night's rain, and a cold wind moved between rows of old buildings in Queens. Inside a tiny apartment on the fourth floor, Daniel opened his eyes before his alarm even rang. The room was silent. A thin mattress, a small table, a rusted stove, one narrow window facing another grey brick wall. That was his home. He sat on the edge of his bed for a few seconds, staring at the floor like he was preparing himself for another long day. Then he stood up. He boiled water, made cheap instant coffee, fried one egg, ate in silence. No TV, no music, no one saying good morning. At exactly 5:30 a.m., Daniel wore his old work jacket, locked his apartment door, and walked into the freezing New York morning. The city was slowly waking up. Distant sirens, subway rumbling underground, store owners opening metal shutters, workers rushing through sidewalks with tired faces. Daniel blended into the crowd like he didn't exist. He worked as a maintenance worker in a tall office building in Manhattan. While businessmen walked inside carrying coffee and expensive briefcases, Daniel quietly pushed his tool cart through long hallways. He fixed broken pipes, changed light bulbs, repaired doors, cleaned things others ignored. Most people barely noticed him. Sometimes they passed him without even making eye contact. Morning, Daniel would say. Usually, silence. For 12 long hours he worked, not because he loved it, but because life demanded it. Rent, bills, food, subway fare. In New York, money disappeared fast. At night, he rode the subway back to Queens, exhausted. Street lights reflected on puddles, cars rushed by, restaurants were full of laughter, families eating dinner, friends talking loudly, couples smiling. Daniel walked past all of it, holding a small plastic bag with bread, noodles, and eggs. Then he climbed back to his apartment and ate dinner alone, again. Sometimes loneliness felt louder than the city itself. His parents were gone, he had no wife, no children, and over time, most friends drifted away. New York had millions of people, yet somehow, he still felt invisible. One freezing winter evening, after heavy snowfall, Daniel left work late. Outside his building, he noticed an elderly woman struggling with grocery bags. Snow covered the sidewalk. She could barely walk. Daniel rushed over and helped carry her groceries all the way to her apartment. At the door, she smiled gently. "You remind me of my son," she said softly. "Thank you." It was a simple sentence, but Daniel hadn't heard warmth like that in years. A few days later, she visited his apartment. She brought homemade soup, later tea, then small conversations. Soon, Daniel helped her often, fixing broken shelves, carrying groceries, checking on her. Slowly, his lonely dinners changed. Sometimes they shared soup, bread, silence, and stories. It wasn't success, it wasn't wealth, but in a city where people often felt invisible, kindness gave Daniel something priceless, a small reason to keep waking up every morning. Because sometimes, the hardest part of life in New York isn't working hard, it's feeling alone while surrounded by millions, and sometimes, one small act of kindness can make a lonely city feel like home.